Hello and welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast.
This is a show dedicated to helping you become a better organist.
We're your hosts, Vidas Pinkevičius.
And Aušra Motuzaitytė Pinkevičienė.
We have over 30 years of experience of playing the organ.
And we've been teaching thousands of organists online from 89 countries since 2011.
So now let's jump in and get started with the podcast for today.
We hope you'll enjoy it.
Hi guys, this is Vidas.
And Aušra.
Let's start episode 746 of Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. Let's talk about an issue of playing without mistakes, how to avoid mistakes in organ practice. That's a hot topic for everyone, and I think frustrating for people to notice those mistakes when they practice. And when they do it repeatedly with mistakes, actually what they're doing is reinforcing mistakes, and this is not very productive practice, don't you think, Aušra?
Of course, because if you cannot play without mistakes and avoid mistakes while you're practicing, then definitely you won't be able to play without mistakes, when you perform in public. That's for sure. Because usually what happens that people, even who don't make mistakes while we practice, we can still make mistakes while we perform. So what should we do in order to make our practice more efficient and avoid mistakes?
What I do, I play extremely slowly. I play twice as slow as the tempo for my performance would be. It's not always required to do it like this, but when you're discovering a difficult passage, discovering a difficult episode or difficult page, or even a difficult piece in general, it's wise to slow down and slow down to the extent of 50% of your concert tempo.
That's a very good suggestion. That's what I do too. I love to practice slowly because it's very important and it helps a great deal. Actually, you achieve progress much faster in practicing slower than, if you will practice faster in concerto tempo all the time. And another thing would be never start to practice piece from the beginning. I think that's another mistake that we often do, because the beginning of piece is usually that part which we know the best, yes? Because
we play it so often. We
yes.
Start from the beginning.
And very often it repeats, itself. The beginning, the opening section repeats somewhere in the piece, even maybe more than once. That's often the case, maybe in a different key, but still, the same familiar theme and musical material. So just, you need to pick up the hardest parts and practice them first, and only then to play from the beginning to the end.
Would it be wise to practice from the end opposite direction, sort of not from the last measure going forward, but going backward? But what I mean is to take an episode of 4 or 8 measures at the end, and then drill that episode.
Well,
and then another episode of 8 measures before that, and before
I
that.
wouldn't do that, because what I meant that don't play like everything equally, because not everything is equally important and not everything is equally hard. So in order to save time and to make your practice more efficient, to avoid mistakes, you need to find places in your piece that are the hardest one, that give you the most trouble, that are the most technically challenging, and practice those parts. Not like, do from the beginning 8 measures and then, go backwards. No, this is not what I meant.
Okay. And another thing that helps is to reduce the texture. Not playing both hands and both feet together. All parts together should come last, I think. Again, it's also very relative to each person, to each piece, each difficulty level.
Yes, because if it's polyphonic music, then it's okay and it's good, for everybody to play it, like do right hand and pedals, left hand and pedals, pedals alone, hands alone, and then put everything together. But if you are advanced organist and you're playing like homophonic music, then probably you don't need to separate the voices, and hands and your feet. So just be mindful, your practice must always be mindful.
And even, let's say, a fugue, right? 4-part fugue might have not 7 combinations, practicing separate hands and then 2 parts together and 3 parts together, but actually 15 combinations, because there are 4 voices and there are 4 combinations of single voice, right? I think 6 combinations of 2 voice texture, and maybe 4 combinations of 3 parts together and 1 combination all parts together.
You already lost me. As soon as you start talking about combinations, and give us numbers, my mind just shuts down. That always happens. And it's especially funny when we are working with our students, and we can see on my face that, this is talking about combinations again. But that's how I am. I don't know. I
It's
just don't like those numbers.
Shall we take a break?
No, we can if you need one.
I need to drink some water from Secrets of Organ Playing mug, which you can, of course, find it in the description of this video. And in the background, beautiful music is sounding. Aušra's Christe Sanctorum meditation. So we discussed about playing slowly, playing in specific difficult spots first, and then maybe reducing texture. What else can we suggest to people, Ausra?
Another suggestion would be don't play with a loud registration. Even, if you will perform certain piece in loud registration, do it on a reduced registration while you're practicing. Because that way you can hear your mistakes much better and you can see if you're hearing. Because what happens for me sometimes, even during concerts, if registration is overwhelming, and that's often the case. Well, not often, but it's not so rare, actually, that, the close by, the organ sound is enormous, and you almost cannot hear what you are playing. So just reduce registration, that way you can control every voice better.
Good idea. If people are playing with virtual organs at home, they can actually choose softer stops and more basic registration, like 2 flutes or 1 principal, with or without a flute in 4-foot level, and save louder registrations for performance, for later. If they want to record themselves, then real registration should come in. If they are performing for others in a church, let's say, then of course would be wise to save that for performance.
Another advice would be, if you are playing a piece and let's say you made a mistake, you played that piece the second time and you made a mistake in the same spot, stop and analyze what is wrong, what is the problem, because if you will keep going, you will never learn that spot. It's maybe, The fingering is wrong. Maybe, if you are playing like thick polyphonic texture, maybe you need to take one voice into another hand. That might be a case. Maybe, your pedaling is wrong in that spot. So, because if you keep repeating the same mistake, it means that something is wrong. You are doing something incorrectly. So you need to step back, to analyze it, and only then, to go back to working on that spot. And after you fix a mistake, be sure that you play that spot at least 3 times without mistakes. That way, your muscles will remember the correct way in playing the certain passage.
That's great idea, Osha. I would just add 3 times in a row without mistakes. In a row, which means if you play twice correctly and the third time is incorrectly, you start over. And usually it takes quite a few repetitions to get it right 3 times in a row.
Yes, yeah. And then, of course, if the certain episode gives you a problem, then to try to incorporate it with a few measures before that difficult spot and with a few measures after that difficult spot, that it would get smoothly into another musical material.
And mistakes not only mean notes, you hit a wrong key. Mistakes could be any number of things. For example, hesitation in rhythm. That's also sort of judge yourself critically and strictly and with the eyes and ears of a listener from outside, not from inside like you would be listening to yourself, but how strangers would perceive your playing in a public setting, at a concert or church service or any other ceremony. How would they react? And if you make such hesitations, that's already a noticeable thing.
And when you're playing it yourself, you might not notice those hesitations, so it would be really helpful for yourself to record your practice once in a while and to listen back to how you did, because usually if you listen from the side, even to your own playing, you might hear easier what you made wrong and what would you like to change. So, you might, be frustrated while hearing your playing from, from a side. But if you won't do it, then, things might not be as good as they could be. What I mean is, better to worry now and then, to sleep well before your actual performance than to feel good now and to feel shitty after your performance.
That's a good advice, Osha. So please send us more questions. We love helping you grow. This is Vidas.
And Osha.
And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.
This podcast is supported by Total Organist, the most comprehensive organ training program online.
It has hundreds of courses, coaching and practice materials for every area of organ playing, thousands of instructional videos and PDFs. You will not find more value anywhere else online.
Total Organist helps you to master any piece, perfect your technique, develop your sight reading skills, improvise or compose your own music, and much, much more.
Sign up and begin your training today at organduo.lt and click on Total Organist. And of course, you will get the first month free too. You can cancel anytime.
If you like our organ music, you can also support us on Buy Me a Coffee platform.
Find out more at buymeacoffee.com/organduo.